Welcome to our 2018 homecoming. We are thrilled to have you here with us. We still have friends coming in, and we're just thrilled to have you as a part of this day of memory and celebration. Our 909 band have to be in Cashers at 11 o'clock this morning. I appreciate them so much being here to have the music going as you were coming in this morning. They're gonna lead us in some singing. We'll have words up on the screen behind me. I'm going to invite you just to keep your seat until we get to I'll Fly Away. Now, those of you who are 909 worshipers, I'll Fly Away is usually what you walk out the door with. We're not walking out the door today to I'll Fly Away. But I will invite you at that time to stand and sing. But for right now, I simply invite you to join with us, join with our 909 band as they lead us as we sing some songs beginning our 2018 homecoming. Welcome.
I saw the light, no more in darkness, no more in night. Now I'm so happy, sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Just like a blind man wandered along, worries and fears I think for my home. Then like a blind man got me back inside. I saw the light, no more in darkness, no more in night. Now I'm so happy, sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. But I was a fool to wander straight in the gate and the narrow way. Now I have traded one for the right. I saw the light, I saw the light, no more in darkness, no more in night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When the shadows of this life that come will lie away, like a bird from the pigeon bars is flown, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to the land where joy shall never end. Fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Now I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away.
Would you give a we reached out. Here's what we're going to do in this segment right here. I reached out to some of our former pastors, people who have served us so faithfully over the years, people who have had leadership roles, to just send a word of greeting. And so I'm going to read some letters, and we actually have some video greetings that we're going to share with you. And then I'm going to get Ken and Jerry to sort of be our microphone runners. If any of you just have a word of celebration or thanksgiving, how this community of faith has impacted you and has been a part of your life in a valuable way. So I just want to share these letters. They're brief, but I want to share them to you as a way of pastoral greetings from pastors who have served this congregation over the years. So the oldest letter that I have, as far as a person who served this congregation a number of years ago, is Jim Thurman. Now, many of you may not remember Jim, but Jim served here from 1962-63, 56 years ago. And dear Randy, he writes, thank you for your call inviting me to attend the homecoming service at Highlands. I regret that I can't be there, but we'll be thinking of all of you as you gather. Please give my love, greetings, and best wishes to the church. I will always be grateful for the way the church received Edie, our 2 children, and me. The appointment to Highlands and Cashers was only my second appointment since seminary. Also, we were still grieving the loss of our first child at 3 years of age, just a little more than a year before we arrived. The church family became our family and helped us in so many ways. And just a year later, the church helped us receive with joy our 4th child, Ruth, who was born in June at the Highlands Hospital. Edie was the only patient in the hospital. And finally, the church was most understanding and supportive when less than a year later I was called to active duty as an Air Force chaplain. We had to leave 4 months before annual conference. Thank you, church family, for being to us a family in every way during times of great need and great joy. May God continue to bless you all, especially on this very special day in the life of the church. Sincerely and with love, Jim Thurman. You also remember Julian Aldridge. Many of you do. Julian served from 1968 to 1972, and he sends this greeting. Dear friends in the Highlands United Methodist Church, thinking of you as you gather for homecoming, thinking of you as you are gathering for homecoming brings to mind wonderful memories of our years among you, 1968 to 72. Among other things, it was the birthplace of our middle child and first son. We cherish that time. May God's blessings abide with you in all the years ahead. We continue to spend the summer months at Lake Junaluska and the winter in Charlotte. Our 3 children, their spouses, and 6 grandchildren, our 6 grandchildren, enrich our lives considerably. We are grateful for good health. This month, I turned 81 years of age, and Becky, 78. Just last month, we hiked a total of 33.6 miles in Bryce, Zion, and the Grand Canyon, all within a week. Love to all of you from Julian and Becky Aldridge. And one final letter that I will share with you today is from Beth Bowser. Beth served as assistant pastor here a number of years ago, and she brings greetings on this very special day. Greetings on this homecoming Sunday. Homecoming is defined as returning to a place formerly frequented or regarded as home, or simply defined as returning home. In one sense, every Sunday morning is a little homecoming for those who participate in Sunday morning studies and worship services. While I'm not able to be with you in person, I am with you in spirit as past and present HUMC family members intentionally gather to remember what has been, to celebrate what is, and to ponder what is yet to come. For almost 24 years, Ken and I have called HUMC our church home, and we still consider it to be so. For 5 of those years, it was my deep privilege to be your associate pastor. Thank you for inviting me to share in your lives and to be in ministry with you in this special way. For over 100 years, this church has been a presence on Main Street, leaving its light on, so to speak, for all to see and inviting those who pass by to come in and stay for a while. I'm grateful for such a presence in this community and for those who made this possible in the past, for those who make it possible now, and for those who will make it possible in the future. I'm thankful for the mission-mindedness of this congregation, not only locally, but also around the world. Indeed, the world is your parish. I'm thankful for the fellowship you enjoy and share. We Methodists love to eat, and this congregation knows how to cook and feed people. A lot of good cooks call HUMC home. She has a smiley face there. As you continue to be the hands and feet of Christ, it is my prayer that you will continue to seek and to respond to God's guidance and call. I also pray that God will bless your ministry as he has done for many years, and that this church will continue to exemplify the call to have open doors, open minds, and open hearts. With continued prayers and every best wish, Beth Bowser. So we thank Beth for that. And we also have a few video greetings, and we'll turn to the screen now and enjoy those.
Hello, Highlands United Methodist Church, and congratulations on your homecoming. I'm glad to be able to be with you today by way of a video clip. I wish I could be there with you. How well I remember my time there from 1988 to 1993, how we built that educational building, how we renovated the sanctuary. Congratulations on your new building program, and for finishing that. I hope to see that sometime soon. Hope to see you again soon. But for today, congratulations. God bless you.
Hello, Highlands Church, from Kim and Eddie Ingram, and this is our baby, the only one we have left in our house because we are officially empty nesters as of this fall. But as we think about our life together as a family, some of our fondest memories were serving as pastors of the Highlands Church. In fact, we looked at some videos recently of the days when the kids were young and how wonderful those days were for our family and our ministry together. And so we're so thankful for homecoming, for you all and what you've done in the name of Christ for the community of Highlands. And we think about you often and pray for you.
Hi, friends. We do miss you. We miss being in Highlands, and we appreciate the ministry that you have done for your many years to date for the time when we were able to be in ministry with you. But we especially celebrate the ministry that is to come with the church and in the community. And know that we love you, and the kids love you, and wish that we all wish that we could be there to celebrate with you.
Hello, friends at Highlands United Methodist Church. You know, 8 of the best years of my life I spent with you, and I just wanted to say happy homecoming this year. And you have the Reverend Michael D. Jordan preaching for you. Mike and Margaret and his family and I have been friends for so long, and so I hope you have a great homecoming. Sorry I can't be with you this year, but I kind of got to preach down here in Hickory. So I hope you have a great homecoming, a great meal. I know you'll have a great meal afterwards, but still love you and think about you and pray for you each and every day. And I know Randy's doing a great job there, and you love Randy. So happy homecoming. Thank you.
Hello, friends and family in Highlands, North Carolina. I understand this, well, today, I guess, is your homecoming Sunday. I've thought a lot about what to say to you all, and when I think about the word home, for such a small word, it does have big meaning. Home, it's a place that you're rooted, a place where you were formed, a place where you were raised, and you all did that for me, and I am forever grateful. So I guess my words to you on this first annual homecoming Sunday ever are thank you. Thank you for believing in me and encouraging me, and thank you for letting me lead you all for a time, because you helped shape and form who I am. So I am able to go and to serve others because you all loved me so well. So happy homecoming Sunday, and I love you all, and I pray for you every day. I hope you have a wonderful day with Reverend Mike Jordan. He is a gem of a person and a wonderful pastor, and I just continue to send my love and blessings your way. So have a happy homecoming Sunday. Bye.
Many of you, of course, know Mike. Some of you who came after 1979 will just get to meet Mike for the first time today. So in either case, I think you will see that Mike is a jovial, happy, and friendly kind of guy. I haven't had a chance to hear Mike preach yet. I'm looking forward to that. But every time I've visited with Mike, I've just always been very appreciative of just his very winsome personality. He retired in 2013. He and his wife Margaret live at Lake Junaluska. One of the things that I keep hearing about Mike is his fine work with the youth while he was here. And Mike is a very fun-loving guy, always doing silly things. And so every now and then you might find a picture of Mike putting rabbit ears behind somebody's head in a very serious moment. So that's the... But we are thrilled to have Mike Jordan here, and we will gladly hear what the Lord has to say to us through Mike when he comes to preach to us after our choir sings.
Well, it is good to be back. I listen to what others said, and I know so many of those folks. Julian Aldridge, I have known my whole life. And let's see, the others, right? Well, Paul Christie, I've known him his whole life. That's not good. I was his dad's associate for 4 years in North Wilkesboro, which is where I came from there to come here. And I was taller than Paul at one time. And David. When we got there, Karen was this tall, Mark was this tall, Paul was about here, and David was about here. Now, a lot of times I've gone to all the Christie weddings, and people thought I was the ring bearer. And so I decided I'd better leave that crowd out. But there could be some stories I could tell you about Paul, but I don't think I need to tell you about the time he was caught egging a Monroe police car when they lived in Charlotte. It's not a pretty story. His mother didn't think so. The police officer didn't think so. Most of you probably do not realize that when a police officer is mad at you, he can actually reach in the window of the driver's car door and pull somebody Paul's size out. And he did that. Jim Thurman is another of my friends I've known for a long time. He's one of my predecessors here. I admire and love Jim greatly. His wife Edie has died in the last several years. And as the tape showed that they lost a child before they came here. And so I have a daily prayer list of folks who have lost children. And a lot of them are Junaluska. 20 families in my community, Junaluska, I know have done that. Somebody said something about quiet people. Jerry Crow. Are there two Jerry Crows here? I'm sorry, I don't know that quiet one. When I was in Brevard and go to the newspaper office for different things, I found out that one of the people who worked there said he had come from here. He had been working with the radio station here in Highlands. Is there one still operating, still in Highlands? Well, we didn't have that when I was here. But every Friday afternoon, this dates all of us, but I'd go to the town hall and type the bulletin stencil on the town typewriter, simply because the one in the church office upstairs was not there anymore, would cut through the stencil and make big, everything was an O, black mark on the bulletins next morning. So I'd go and Jerry was there, and Kimbo and Herb, but especially with Jerry, you could always find out what had happened, what was happening, and what was really going to happen that people did not know about. So times have changed. We didn't need a radio station. And Jerry. And I did want to talk about the slide about the little church in the Wildwood. One time I was approached to have a graveside service there, and it was, I digress, but this is one of the funniest moments I've ever had in my whole life, when I had to bite my lips, my tongue, stick my fingers in my mouth to keep from laughing. But the mother of this man and wife came, and the mother had died fairly recently, but they wanted to have the committal down in Horse Cove at the cemetery there. And so they came over. We had agreed to meet on Saturday evening in the vestibule of the sanctuary. And when we were standing there talking, all of a sudden, the floor started doing like this. And these folks, they were sophisticated. I mean, they really were sophisticated. Nothing was going to bother them from the task at hand. I look up, and the chandelier was going like this. I'm thinking, what happens if the steeple falls? But they kept right on talking, and they wanted to make sure that this guy didn't mess up Grandmama's service. And they had some reel-to-reel tapes that they were going to play the next day of music. But the father had died first, but they wanted to play his tape second, and the mother had died second. They wanted to play that first, and all this was on the same tape. So they're explaining to me, and I'm whatever. And when they finally left, I raced home to cut on TV to see if it had been an earthquake or, worse yet, an airliner had hit the mountain. I mean, it was really vibrating. And turned out it was an earthquake down near Greenville. But anyway, the next day we were down in Horse Cove, and I was supposed to do a little part, and they would cut on the reel-to-reel tape, and then they would, because they were out of order, they'd rewind it and do another one, and I was just kind of the magnet, I guess, on the wall to do my part. Well, that was in the day of CB radios, and this reel-to-reel tape recorder picked up 10-4, good buddy. How are you doing? Where are you close? I'm thinking, if you just let me do this, the fellow was. I'm a Dookie, so this fits with what I think of them anyway. But he was a professor at Carolina, University of North Carolina, and every time one of these 10-4 good buddies, who, what you see, how he'd turn the tape up a little bit so that the music would come out, and it just the 10-4 good buddies got louder and louder and louder. And it was finally over. And I didn't hang around to do any greetings. I was afraid I could have split my sides. Well, Randy, I guess since I'm retired, I don't know this for sure, but moving day is usually on a Tuesday. Is it not, after you've had a day after the service in the last place you are, and then you move? And we came up here on Tuesday, the third Tuesday in June of 1976. And we had a U-Haul. That's all I ever used to get me from place A to place B. And so we'd gotten it unloaded. And on Wednesday, Mark and I unpacked and put stuff away. And we're at it all day. And finally, Mark just looked at me and said, I'm tired of this. Let's go out. The choir's practicing tonight. And it's Wednesday. It was about 7 o'clock. So we headed up here, and the choir had already gotten there, and for some reason, all of you folks who were in the choir, your back was to the front. They were sitting in the front pew. The choir loft was up there, but they were, well, backward, whatever. And so Mark and I walked in, and you could see a head start turning around like, who's that? And the saddest thing I've ever known in my whole life is Barbara James said to somebody, wonder what Jeff is doing here. You know, it's sad when a mother cannot recognize that somebody's not her own son. And even worse, my nickname at Duke with my teammates and my buddies was Buzzard. And if you can't figure that out, you need to see another eye doctor. And she thought I was Jeff. And then other folks did too, and at some point we'll have a chance to let Jeff explain all that stuff. I appreciate the introduction. I think I'll need to let you hear the very best description of me there's ever been. In the first month I was here, I found out that one of our people, Wendell McKinney, was in a nursing home in Silva. And part of the reason I got to come here was because my dad had died a year before. My mother was having a hard time. None of us had really ever heard the word Alzheimer's in 1976 or so, but I heard it the next year. And so I was sent here. And so I figured I could go see Wendell and then go to Junaluska and see my mom. But somebody said something to me about, well, while you're at the nursing home, we have another person there, Homer McKinney. Now, Homer was a Presbyterian, but it's all right. So why don't you go see Homer? I said, well, sure. Every time I do hospitals or nursing homes, you just see everybody you need to want to see. And whoever suggested this started talking about Homer McKinney, that he was always known as a man of great foresight and vision. One of the folks who lived way back in a holler, I think near Turtle Pond, wasn't it, Jerry? Anybody know Turtle Pond? And so I listened to all these stories. It said that this is talking about maybe 80, 90, maybe even 100 years ago now, that Homer had said that someday there will be boxes in people's homes, and there will be pictures beamed through the air, and people will be able to stay at home and see what's going on in the rest of the world. And sure enough, these things we call idiot boxes did come to be, and so he was right in that. So I headed off to the nursing home, just really looking forward to meeting this guy who had such great foresight and vision. I found Wendell McKinney first and visited him for a little while, and then went looking for Homer, and finally came to the room where Homer was supposed to be. And there were 4 beds, and there were 2. The room was not much larger than this. I will not give you the name of the nursing home because I don't want anybody to wind up there. But I mean, it's way too crowded, 4 beds. And I walked in the door, and there was a man here on this bed running perpendicular to the door, and then another fellow sitting in a wheelchair looking out the window over here on the right-hand side of the room. This man was asleep, so I worked my way through the beds and couldn't get in front of this man in the window. But I said, "Are you Homer McKinney?" He said, "No, that's him back there asleep." I said, "Well, I won't bother him. Just tell him the Methodist preacher from Highlands came by to say hello." He said, "Okay." So I started out, and as I walked past the bed, I looked down, and the eyes were open. Figured I've already awakened him. I might as well say hello and visit for a moment if he wants to. So I said, "Mr. McKinney, I'm Mike Jordan. I'm the Methodist minister in Highlands." "You're the Methodist minister, Methodist preacher, Highlands?" "Yes, sir, I sure am." A little louder. "You're the Methodist preacher from Highlands?" Can't hear me. "Yes, sir, I sure am." "You say you're the Methodist preacher from Highlands?" "Yes, sir, I sure am." "You sure are the sorriest looking preacher I've ever seen." And people who knew Homer always said he was a man of great foresight and vision. Nobody ever changed that. Another lady didn't quite come out with that same take on me. There was a wedding here in the spring of 1977, and Margaret and I were expecting our first baby in the summer, and we decided we were going to go on a trip somewhere to before the baby came, at least have a couple weeks, so we don't even remember where we went. We were gone for a couple weeks, and while we were gone, there was a wedding held in the sanctuary. And it all been arranged. The Methodist minister from somewhere in South Carolina, he was going to do this. Everything was fine. Well, we came home, and because my mother was not had digressed somewhat, so I brought her back to the parsonage in Highlands for a few days. And she was sitting in the den right around the corner from the living room in the parsonage, the old parsonage. And the mother of the bride came by the parsonage and rang the doorbell or knocked or whatever, and I opened it, and it was lunchtime. And she said, well, she just wanted to give a gift to the church in appreciation for allowing her daughter to be married here and all this stuff. So we sat down and we talked. We were in the living room, maybe 15 feet away from where my mother was around the corner. And then why she said this, none of us will ever know. But she said, you remind me of our minister at home. Quiet, dignified, reserved. And right around the corner, my mother probably could not have told you my whole name, but she knew that wasn't her baby boy. That lady described. And there was this huge explosion of laughter. I thought, thanks, Mom. Yeah. So anyway, there are all kinds of ways that people see us. I love the church. As a little boy growing up, I watched on TV, as some of you, on one of those idiot boxes that Homer talked about, Groucho Marx. Anybody remember Groucho Marx? A brother, Harpo, and there was a third one. Anybody? What was the third one's name? What? Okay. And so I remember Groucho. I don't remember the other two at all, but Groucho had a saying, I wouldn't join any organization that lets folks like me in. Well, I probably would agree with that on some level. But another fellow had a different take. We've gone through some of the worst political stuff I remember. I have family in politics a long time ago. But Governor John Kasich said more than once in the campaign, I want to be part of something that's bigger than I am and something that's going to outlast me. And he said, for me, that is my faith. And the place I exhibit that is not only in the workplace, but in the church. And I want to be a part of that. And you could tell that he was sincere. I love this last song, All Are Welcome, All Are Welcome. When I was a teenager, my dad was a Methodist minister also. We lived in Winston-Salem, and he was a district lieutenant for some reason. Because he liked to play golf, he was given an honorary membership at a country club. And we spent, as a kid, growing up, I spent all summer, every summer. One time, my mother and I left Lake Junaluska while I was working most summers, also, 8 summers, as a teenager and all. And we left Lake Junaluska on Labor Day night, so I'd get back in time for school the next morning. No warm-up for that. But I learned after my senior year in high school, there were those days you had to wait between you finished your exams and whether they were going to look at your transcript and see whether or not you really graduated. And then if you could go to the line of commencement. Fortunately, I didn't have to find out whether I made it or not, but I had to spend about 4 or 5 days in Winston. Didn't know what to do in Winston-Salem in the summertime. I'd never been there. And then my mother said, why don't you go to the country club and swim? Never thought of that, but because all I'd done is Lake Junaluska was home. Pool, lake, all that stuff. So I went to the swimming pool at the country club. Was there for maybe an hour. And, of course, a lot of the kids that I went to high school with, they were also out for then. And 5 times, each kid came up to me, 5 different people said exactly the same words. Mike, I didn't know you belonged here. Well, it took 5 times for it to get the. And I thought, I really don't belong. I know what they meant. I know what they said. But I have decided for my life, I want to be a part of something that's bigger than I am and something that takes everyone in. In the Gospel of Matthew, there are only 2 mentions of the word church in any of the Gospels, both in Matthew. And this is my favorite text. I cannot tell you why, just it is. But Jesus was walking down to Jerusalem, and they came to Caesarea Philippi. And when you hear these words, you'll understand what was going on in the disciples' mind. Caesarea Philippi was known as an extremely religious center in the ancient world. In that place, or right around it, there were these symbols. There was a stream of water, the headwaters of what was to become the Jordan River. And for all our ancestors in the Jewish body and even us Christians, it became the sacred river for which these people were tied to. And in above or somewhere close to that, there was a cavern in the mountain where the stream started. And the cavern was so deep that at that time, at least, it is said that no person had ever found the bottom of it. And in that cavern, the Greeks believed that their god Pan, the god of nature, was born. Then also in the city, there were, according to the Roman historian Josephus, who tells us a lot about Jesus and all the folks, things that were going on. Not a lot about Jesus, but he did mention Jesus. Secular stuff shows that, yes, indeed, he did make a presence in Galilee. But there were 16 temples erected to the Syrian god Baal, the fertility god. And you can take that any way you want to. They meant it in every way. but dominating the whole landscape. And we can only imagine that Jesus, as his disciples walked with him and they were coming to Caesarea Philippi, he stopped, turned his back to the city, and kind of let them look over his shoulders as he began to tell them what he was going to tell them. But there was a gleaming white marble temple, dominated the whole landscape. And from here, everybody who came knew that Caesar, Herod Philip, the reigning monarch, so to speak, of the Judean community in that area, Herod Philip had wanted to kiss up to Caesar. It was really the Romans who ruled the place, and the Romans considered Caesar God. So our politicians think they're God too. So, and some things have never changed. But that's what this gleaming white marble temple. And then Jesus dares to begin asking these questions. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and others Jeremiah, and others say you're one of the prophets." And he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" The key question in all of history for those disciples and for us. Who do you say that I am? And Simon answered. He was always the one who first blurted. Anybody ever blurted out something and wish as soon as you did, wish you take it back? Doesn't work. But at least in this case, Simon was right. He said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. For you are indeed correct. And I will give you a new name. I will call you Peter," which means the rock. Both in Aramaic and in Greek, the word for rock, Petros, is Peter. "I will give you a new name, and you will be Peter. And for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father is in heaven. And I will tell you, I will tell you, you're Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed on earth." And then he strictly charged his disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. This is the word of God for the people of God. Simon blurted out. He usually did. Most times when we blurt out, we get it wrong. But fortunately for Jesus and for the disciples, he got it right because he needed to know before he got to Jerusalem. And he knew what was going to happen to him there. He'd predicted over and over. 3 times he said, "When I get there, they're going to kill me." So I need to know, do you really know who I am? Do you remember what we learned about rocks? Some of us, at least a little bit, in elementary, junior high science. Rocks change. We think they don't. We go out to Whiteside. It's one of the most wonderful views I've ever been. I've always counted a privilege to be able to go out there and look. Last fall, I guess, when was the eclipse? Last August. We decided we were going to come up here, go with some of my friends, an ophthalmologist, his wife, lifelong buddies, came up to be with us so we could get a good view of the eclipse. Missed it. Those folks who stayed in the flatlands got perfect view. And Wayne and Jerry were going to say, "Well, come on over and watch it." They were sitting out in the yard. They couldn't see it either. But they're rocks, different kind of rocks. There's the sedimentary rocks, that which is sand and everything that washes down the rivers and winds up in the ocean, and the pressures of the water over generations, centuries, and millennia build up and then make it turn into sedimentary rock. And then there's the igneous rock, which is when volcanoes erupt, and for the folks in Hawaii, and the Philippines and others, just your heart breaks for what goes on with those folks. The igneous, molten rock, and then it cools down and becomes hard and stays that way. And then there's metamorphic, 3 types of rock. Metamorphic is what happens when the sedimentary and the igneous rock has pressures brought to bear by other forces, chemicals, years, whatever, and the sedimentary and igneous rock is changed. We're like metamorphic rock, are we not? Despite what we have maybe done, and sometimes in our lives, we have been confronted by the Christ, the Son of the living God. And it has changed us, made us different. I suggest that you and I are more like any other rock. We are more like metamorphic. Changed from what we were to what we are now by the power of God and the gift of the Holy Spirit. One morning when I was in junior high Sunday school class, I'm not talking about when I was in junior high age, I'm talking about 12, 15 years ago. I was in the junior high Sunday school class, and Mark Christie, Paul's older and taller brother, was the teacher. I've been part of that family for 40 years now. Mark was the teacher. And something was said. Can't really quote it. But all of a sudden, kind of new revelation that Jesus is the only person who has ever lived who is still living. Caesar and all the others, the pharaohs, the presidents, the big shots, they're gone. Doesn't matter what kind of position they've ever had, they are done when they take their last breath. But Jesus is still living. And then as I discovered when I had gotten away from the church and certainly away from what I wanted to be and needed to be, the chaplain at Duke, a guy named Howard Wilkinson, sent me to a Fellowship of Christian Athletes conference. And that was the life-changing moment. I found out that Jesus is the only person who can come into every single human heart. I say that knowing if he could come into mine the way I was then, he can come into anyone else's, and he has. From the past comes the present, and the present leads to the future. So we reminisced a little bit on some of these slides. I do want to. Billy Crow looked like such a sweet, kind, nice little boy, didn't he? I'm glad he's gone for your sake. Every Sunday morning when I'd be at the door seeing people on the way out, Billy would come along, bam, hit me in the back. And these folks come along, oh, what a cute little boy. I want to wring Billy's neck. Now he's turned into a Lutheran minister. I hope he has a little boy in his congregation that does unto him what he did unto us. But there are people who shape us, and this is not intended to be an exhaustive list by any means whatsoever, but it's part of it. Lacey Harper. Lacey was one of those folks who had multiple talents. By the time I got here, he was in the beginning stages of battling cancer. He was a giant of a man. Even us Dukies have to give credit to the Heels when they do well. He lettered in 4 sports at the University of North Carolina: football, basketball, baseball, and track. Ooh, yeah. I managed to do 1. He did 4 and obviously did it very well. And he was also inducted into the Order of the Golden Fleece, which is Carolina's highest honorary to any person who's been to their school. As Lacey battled this stuff called cancer, things would go up and down, up and down, up and down. And at one point, he wound up in Angel Hospital in Franklin. Had surgery. So I was there in the days while he was recovering, and where he could start expressing himself better in the day after surgery. And I said, I want to go to church. I don't like to miss church. And he was kind of angry about it. But I don't like you to miss it either. I'm not going to drag you out of the hospital. And I kept thinking, he's not going to leave this place. I don't think he'll go home. Fool that I am. Sure enough, Lacey went home, and from their home down the mountain, Gold Mine Road, I think, I'd go down, and Lacey'd be in bed, said, I don't like to miss church. I want to come back to church. I really want to. Okay, Lacey, I'm thinking, oh, he's in such pain. That'll never happen. Then one Sunday morning, last row, standing above everybody else, was Lacey Harper. He made it happen because he loved this place, he loved you, and he was loved by you. There was Spawn Raymer. Anybody remember Spawn? Mr. Fix-It. Actually, Mr. Break-It. Everything Spawn tried to fix wound up being in worse shape than it was before he did. And then you had to call a real repairman. Fortunately, this didn't happen with me, but he decided to put a fan in the chancel area so the choir would be cool. Bennett was here at that time. He walked by wearing his robe. The fan shredded one side of the robe. He turned around and went back the other way. The fan shredded the other side of his robe. Get it all done at once. Spawn was one of those folks when I really first had that first meeting with him, he was in the hospital. 2 weeks, maybe not even that long after I'd gotten here. He had read in a magazine or something where a person his age, a man of his age, should be able to do so many push-ups. So he got down on the floor, home, I guess. Pop. Something went wrong in here, so they hauled him to the hospital. And he's there lying in bed and laughing at himself. And then he says, I pray for you every day. I didn't remember asking people to do that, but he said I did, so I guess I did. And what a marvelous experience that is. And then there were the times when he decided he wanted to hassle me. Spawn could do that. He was a Kentucky grad. He played on the Kentucky basketball team. His 50th anniversary of graduating there was in the 1970s, so you can see how far back he was. But 1978, both Duke and Kentucky wound up in the Final Four. My telephone rang about 1 minute before the Duke game. I'm like, why is somebody doing that? I pick it up. I know the voice. It's a long-distance call from Florida. Spawn says, Preacher, I need you to come out and visit right now. My wife's awful sick. I said, you tell her she's going to be a whole lot sicker before I get there today. A couple years later, same thing, I was in Gibsonville. He called up, Preacher, my wife's awful sick. I need you to come out here right now. I said, you just tell her if I was married to you, I'd be awful sick too. But what a character, one person whose God's light and laughter shine through. And then folks who made huge differences. As so many of you have, Clark and Doris Picklesheimer. Clark was the Sunday school superintendent when I got here, and every Sunday morning in the sanctuary we'd have a Sunday school assembly. And like Mr. Harrison before him, Clark would have something to give all the children. Our little daughter Betsy would come toddling down the aisle waiting for her chewing gum or whatever else that Clark had. And then at the end of the day, knowing that we'd had, at least getting through Sunday morning, had been lots of work going on, Clark would say, going out the door, we're having big doings at our house. Come join us for something to eat. Let me tell you, when the Pickleheimers had big doings, you wind up being a bigger man or person than you were before. You'd have to waddle out to the car. And Doris, with her work with Head Start, Terry, 25 years, something like that. She was running the Head Start program. Anybody here in this group grow up in the Head Start program? Well, no telling how many young folks in Highlands and surrounding community came there and got a better start in life because their education began with Doris Picklesheimer and all the folks who helped them. One of those folks was Helen Hines. And Helen started showing up here too, which is, I think, well, she felt welcome. Highly unusual for the wife of the presiding bishop of the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States. The Hines, John Hines, they lived here, retired here. That's what John's title was. He retired, presiding. In the Methodist Church, we don't have a number one bishop. They rotate between being chair of the council of bishops, but nobody's number one. But John and Helen Hines were. John Hines was, and Helen she did the Head Start program. That's where we first met. And then one day when Helen was taking her car down to Asheville to get it worked on, it was a terrible wreck. Don't know exactly the details, but just Helen was rushed to Mission Hospital. I'm sure it was a Mission or St. Joe there across the street, either way. And I got there as fast as I could. And by the time I got there, they had her in pre-op, and they were going to do some stuff. And then they decided to airlift her to Houston. She wrote a letter back to us, thanking us all for our love and care for her during this time of great injury and great discomfort. But said, I got airlifted to Houston because my son-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. And he's going to be able to look after me and care for me, and we can stay at their home after I get out. How lucky can you get? I think you're really lucky you don't have a wreck like that. But that was Helen's take on life. How lucky can you get? How fortunate can you get that there are those around us who love us in times of difficulty? And then seeing Elaine here a moment ago, I thought, I have to remember Bill Coffeen. Bill wore the best-looking jackets and whatever. He was like a light bulb standing out on the porch, being the greeter, the welcomer, the usher who welcomed people in. And at one moment somewhere in one of those early Sundays, I mentioned Vince Lombardi. I could quote his line, what it takes to be number one, you've got to pay the price. Winning is not a sometime thing, it's an all-the-time thing, on and on. And Bill's uncle played for the Green Bay Packers. So we were hooked. So every Monday night, especially Monday Night Football, head up the mountain to Bill and Elaine's house, and we'd watch whoever was on, but especially if it's the Dolphins. Because being Miami, he'd become a Dolphins fan also, and two of my college buddies, including one that had been one of our wrestlers when I was assistant coach, playing for the Dolphins. So that was my team. Never been to Miami in my life, but that was my team. But Bill had the brightest smile. If anybody wanted to know whether they were welcome in this place, Bill's face showed it, and everybody was there. John mentioned the 5 o'clock congregation. Well, that was an incredible experience. I don't know how it started. I'm glad it did. I will not say to you that one congregation was more exciting than another. But when our African-American friends get together, brothers and sisters get together, they know how to celebrate. Lots of hands. I wore my hands out. A small group. One was led by a lady named Martha Nicholson. Martha had a brother who was about to be named one of the bishops in the AME or AME Zion denomination. And Martha was she was the boss. We even had Bishop Scott Allen, also our own African-American bishop, who was assigned to this conference for a while. He came up here to spend a Sunday with us with early service, 5 o'clock service, and a joint service in the evening. And when he came, I said, Bishop, you may be in charge of the Western North Carolina Conference. Whatever you tell us preachers, we will do. But Miss Nicholson's in charge of this service. And you and I get along a whole lot better if we do what she says. Whatever you say, Brother Jordan. So we did. And then when Betsy, our daughter, was born, she greeted me that first Sunday. Reverend Jordan, thank you for naming your daughter for me. Really? Betsy's really Martha Elizabeth Jordan, now Bell. Ms. Nicholson was Martha Elizabeth Nicholson. What a great coincidence. But John was right. Every year at the end of the season, they'd have a dinner to thank this congregation. And see, a lot of these folks were cooks. I mean, and they were by the folks who came from Florida or whatever. They had the best. And what a joy it was to be able to worship and eat. And we knew we could do that, then we could work together and we could solve all of life's problems. It's too bad that that crowd no longer is able to come here. How many of you were part of the youth group while I was here? Stand up. Yeah. Yeah. Let me explain something. You can start Medicare at age 65. You're closer to that than we were when our youth group. But what an incredible group of young folks. And one of the things we did, I worked at Murdoch Center for a year and a half. Took a course and worked there actually for a year. It was one of our state institutes for folks who are mentally handicapped. And I fell in love with our residents there. So every fall, we would take a trip. Larry Brooks and Larry Allison, the two principals of the school, they believe what I said. We were going to get educated. And so they let the kids out. And we'd leave on Thursday at lunchtime, drive to the Durham area, spend the night. Did we stay in Duke Chapel? We stayed in Duke Chapel. The floor was really pretty hard, the slate, first night. Second night, it didn't. It was great. You could sleep anywhere. But we'd go to Murdoch and visit with the folks, and these young people learned how to relate to folks, and they did it well. And not only were they doing this, but other churches across other youth groups in our conference were doing it. And so as we would spend time at Murdoch, then we would go to see something I could say was educational for sure. We'd go to Raleigh or the Moorhead Planetarium. Two carloads of us. We were a big group. Wayne was driving one car. I was driving ours. We wound up in Raleigh. And I know we saw the Capitol and probably Museum of History or something on this particular trip. We got in our cars, we started to leave, and somewhere in there, this is why I'm a small town boy, we passed the state legislative building on our right. That wasn't supposed to be what I was doing, so I made a couple turns, and sure enough, passed the state legislative building on my right. Make another turn somewhere, Jordan. So I made another turn, and sure enough, passed the state legislative building on my right. 3 times. I thought, how do I get out of this place? Well, Highlands had 2 stoplights when I was here. You got any more than that? How many? 3, up to 3. I lived in Gibsonville. They had 5. You know, big city. But getting out of there. But we got to see lots of wonderful things. But what happened was after we came back, we started planning about what to do next. And we began doing weekend camps for folks who are mentally handicapped, folks in this district. Waynesville, or anywhere for that matter. It includes some folks from here. And our kids were the special friends for each of these campers. And they did that well. And then we'd have a worship service, and we had worked on a play with everybody in our group, all the special needs folks could do. And everybody had a part. Everybody had their 15 minutes of fame. And we had a good time doing that. And what has happened from the past comes to the present. We now have a unit in our conference called UMAR, United Methodist Agency for Rehabilitation. It used to be for retarded, but we changed to rehabilitation. There are now 23 homes, group homes in our conference that have 6 individuals each. There are 9 more apartments on the drawing scale from what I've told, which will have at least 6 more people. And this means that folks, parents who have a child that cannot live completely by themselves, as one mother told me, they know they'll be loved and cared for as long as they live. Again, our African American folks were the first group to ever give an offering to Andean Rural Health Care, which is what John Baumrucker's wonderful foster home in Bolivia has morphed into. Henry Perry and Alice Weldon, they were married then. They're not there, but they came and they spoke, and they could only get here at 5 o'clock one Sunday in the summer, and that's when they did, and they made the first offering. have no clue what it was. But that mission is church-based, and according to John, it still is. And now Henry is spread from not only Bolivia, but also to Guatemala and to Liberia, Kenya, and Sierra Leone. It's worldwide, and they have even won great awards from the Ronald McDonald House. The list could go on and on. But when I was here, and I checked this morning, I did not see it the last time I was here, but it's back. Or maybe it never went. Maybe I just couldn't find it. Picture hanging in the chapel of Kate Tillett Smith. Her father was Wilbur Fisk Tillett. And he wrote a hymn, a gorgeous hymn, which is not in our hymnal now. Should be, I think, but is not. But the first verse tells us who we are and why we believe what we believe and what we can do. And for those of us who've gone through dark moments or are going through, it fits perfectly. The first stanza of the hymn is this: O Son of God incarnate, O Son of man divine, in whom God's glory dwelleth, in whom man's virtues shine. God's light to earth thou bringest to drive sin's night away, and through thy life so radiant, God's earth's darkness turns to day. That's what life is. It's light and darkness is not some of us have been or are going through dark times even now in our families or ourselves. But God's light turns that darkness into day. We know that to be the truth. Will you join me in prayer? Almighty and eternal God, giver of every good and perfect gift, we thank you for this congregation, for these people who for over 100 years have been coming to this place to worship and serve you. Remind us once again that this is Christ Church. And upon this rock like us, he uses us to be your servants. So help us as we leave this building today to be energized once again in the many ways that this present will lead to the future. That we can truly be Christ's disciples in word, action, and deed. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Amen.